Brothers and sisters, good morning. As a priest, we often open our gatherings in these terms. Brothers and sisters, in Christ we need to. This week of human fraternity has invited us to make one step further, step out beyond the borders of one given religion, beyond the borders of one given religious community, step up forward into the deep, look in alto, cross the borders of individual religions, individual religious communities, reach out to the brother and sister in humanity. Welcome to you all, brothers and sisters, to the week of human fraternity, dedicated to the idea of human fraternity, to the call to joint action and solidarity for a world redeemed and reconciled with itself. Welcome to Tangaza University College. Welcome to IRDIS, the Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies. On behalf of Tangaza administration, on behalf of all the team of IRDIS, I welcome you all to the closing event of the week-long dedication to the idea of human fraternity, and also to a reflection, a set of reflection and actions to help us meditate deeply on the idea and turn our minds and heart to actions together for a world that is one in its diversity, peaceful in its diversity, reconciled with itself. To celebrate this week of human fraternity here at Tangaza University College, we have opened the whole week by an exhibition which brought together religions to reach out to each other, introduce each other to each other, get to know each other. This is the first step toward the reflection and a response to the call to human fraternity, to joint action and solidarity. Reach out to the other, get to know each other. And then, while the exhibition was going on, a series of 4 webinars were reflecting first on the document Fratelli Tutti. We are all brothers and sisters. That document, which has had a great impact and is related to the call to joint action and solidarity, recognizing that the other is a brother and a sister to be loved and cared for. The other webinar, the second one, reflected on the Abu Dhabi Declaration of Human Fraternity, the historical precedent, that is the encounter between Francis the Saint and the Sultan Al-Kamil. These are examples in the past of actions already toward bringing about that universal fraternity that is beyond clustered religions, clustered communities. The invitation to step forward beyond the borders of one's religion or religious community. The third webinar dipped into the Fratelli Tutti, especially from a Muslim perspective. As I said, the precedence is an encounter between a Christian saint and a sultan. Then the third webinar gave the Muslim perspective. How do you look at this event that was the step to invite for human fraternity? The fourth webinar, the last of the 4 series, is on the universal brotherhood. And an icon was looked at, that is Charles de Foucault, one who lived in his life that image of being a brother to all, who has made his home and his heart a Hawa, as the conference with the webinar mentioned. He has made of his home and his heart a Hawa, that is a fraternity, a place for everyone to come and feel at home and live. That marked the end of our 4 series of webinars. Then we had a book launch to reflect on religion and violence. We know that religions are meant to bring about cohesion, peace, and harmony, and we know from our contemporary experience that it hasn't always been so. The reflection on that, a book that has been published by Kangaza University College entitled Religion and Violence, that can be found here. Then so, a series of books on Arabic fraud. Why? Reaching out to the other requires language, understanding, communication, and means of communication. Arabic, as part of IRDI's commitment to bridging communities and people and cultures, has introduced the study of Arabic. And so a series of books on Arabic language, classical Arabic language, was also launched yesterday. Yesterday, a training was made on the space of women. We know, if you look at the example we have given so far, you have Pope Francis and Sheikh Al-Azhar for the declaration. We have Francis meeting Al-Kamil. We have Charles de Foucault, all are men. And yet we know the place that women play in this work toward human fraternity. The heart of a woman encompasses the whole of humanity. She is the mother of humanity. And therefore, yesterday and today is consecrated to that reflection. But especially yesterday was this training of feeling our part as women, our role, our space, our role in this all endeavor toward human fraternity. Today, the last event of this series of the week dedicated to the reflection on the idea of human fraternity, but also to the commitment to respond to the call to joint action and solidarity for a world reconciled and at peace with itself. This conference is dedicated to the reflection on religion and gender. Welcome, therefore, to this last conference of our week dedicated to human fraternity, and on behalf of all Kangaza University College, the administration, the whole team of IRDIS, allow me to welcome our guest speakers, this Mrs. Aisha Tafalla. She's not around. Aisha Tafalla introducing, welcome for the speech here. And then Professor Mary Getui, welcome. Thank you very much. Professor Odan Isse, welcome. I hope I pronounced well the name. You're most welcome, and thank you for accepting to help us in this reflection on religion and gender. At this point, allow me to open our conference with a word of prayer, and then I will call upon Mr. Matthias Edgar to lead us into the program. May I ask us to take a moment of silence to put ourselves in the presence of the Lord of all, the one who holds our being in his hand. Loving Father, non-forsaken, God of all beings, we give you thanks for the gift of this great idea that has sprung from the hearts of your leaders in faith. The idea that we are all one is all inspired by you, the one true God, from whom we all come, to whom we all shall go. We thank you for your patience with humanity. You never cease to guide us back to yourself and back to each other. Thank you for this week to meditate upon our true nature, brothers and sisters of the same God and Father. As we continue our meditation of your gift to humanity, the gift of universal brotherhood, we ask you, as we lean toward the theme of religion and gender, you who have chosen the woman to be the mother of all humanity, help us to perceive the great gift that you grant us through her. Lead our discussions, inspire our speakers, and lead us in communion of mind and heart till the end of this day, that the fruit of this meeting and this conference may spread throughout the world and breed in us the desire to be one, brothers and sisters, one humanity, reconciled with itself and with you. We ask this to you, who live and reign forever and ever. Amen. Matthias, again.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once more to Tangazi University College, and welcome also to the Institute of Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies. My name is Matthias Eder. I work here as advisor for Interreligious Dialogue specifically. I have been sent and seconded as part of a program of the German government. It's called the Civil Peace Service, and the organization that is sending us is called Agiamondo. We are several people here in Kenya. We also have one additional colleague now in the IRIS office. Our new colleague Susan sits over there. We are trying to help the missionaries of Africa, the congregation of Father Adina and Father Innocent, our director, who will join us in a little bit as well. We were here, or we are here, to help them build a center for interreligious dialogue. And here this is the fruit of the first 2 or 3 years of work. And now we are trying to expand on it. Expanding through, for example, the exhibition, which just came down that road, expanding through a lot of different events and expanding the space that is here for religious minorities and for social minorities. And even though they are the majority in society, women are considered a minority in representation. So part of what we are doing and part of what we are trying to expand is the space for women representation and collaboration in religion. On that, I have the immense pleasure to welcome Professor Bitui. Professor Bitui is one of the eminent theologians of the African continent. And I hate it when they say she's one of the eminent female theologians of the African continent. This distinction is not necessary. There is greatness and there is greatness, and it doesn't matter what your gender is. Mary Gitui is a professor in the Department of Religious Studies at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. She's also served at Kenyatta University, and her research interests are in religion, culture, education, gender, peace, health, and family. Areas in which she has published widely. There's plenty of books to do some research on what Mary Gitui has accomplished so far. So without further ado, I would like to give you the floor for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here, be part of this great event, and to share a few thoughts on the topic interreligious dialogue as a space for women's representation and collaboration in Christian traditions. I have a few notes here. I'm going to speak to them, and I'm very glad that we have a question and answer session where it will not be just myself speaking, but I believe this will be an opportunity for us to also have our voices heard. Let me congratulate the Institute and Tagasa College for this kind of effort. It's not taken for granted. Personally, I owe a lot to Tagasa College. Then I started associating with this institution way back in 1995. And I've participated in many activities here. I've even taught in some of the institutes. So I'm not a stranger here. And a lot of my professional growth, I want to thank Tangaza College. So let me go straight to the topic of today. And I'm also glad that in a little while we are going to listen to my colleague, Gordon Info. Welcome, and later in the afternoon, I'm sure it's a rich-packed program for all of us. I looked at the topic that I was given, and I raised several questions. There are 7 in all. My discussion may not necessarily follow the same order. The first question is, what is interreligious dialogue? Secondly, what is space? And I also want to look at space as an opportunity. And at 3, I'm asking, who is woman? Number 4, what is representation? Number 5, what is collaboration? And number 6, which is the Christian tradition? And finally, I ask a question, is there a difference between interfaith dialogue and interreligious dialogue? So an attempt to answer the first question. Interreligious dialogue is when people of different religious convictions come together. There are a few things that they come together to do, or they are expected to do. One is to discuss mutually. 2, to seek to understand self and to understand the other. And very particular on this first one of seeking to understand self and then understand the other, because without understanding self, then we cannot appreciate the other. It is also an effort, interreligious dialogue is also an effort to appreciate each other's uniqueness and differences, or even different views. So appreciation of the other. It is also expected that interreligious dialogue is an effort to be rational, to put reason into play and lay emotions aside. Interreligious dialogue is also a commitment to respectful sharing, respect for the other, and again I say respect for self, then respect for the other. It is also an effort to commit or to devote resources. The time could be money, it could be even reading. So it's a commitment of resources. Interreligious dialogue can also be counted as a process. It is not something that we'll achieve probably by being here today, but it is a process, and opportunities avail themselves as we go on. Often, interreligious dialogue is deliberate, organized, and structured. But I also want to put it forward that it can be deliberate and unconscious. In short, every time we need to be aware that this is something that we need to promote and can be dispensed by an individual in their own space. Now, why do we have interreligious dialogue? It presupposes that there is a necessity for it. Could it be that it arises out of certain situations? And I have a few points here on why do we need interreligious dialogue. Now, oftentimes, we are suspicious of each other. Am I right? It's because we don't know or we don't understand the other person, and especially when it comes to issues of religious conviction. So the element of suspicion. Second point is lack of understanding or appreciation of one's unique beliefs and those of the other, related to a point we have just raised earlier. We also need interreligious dialogue when our space, and especially our religious space, is threatened. And oftentimes as human beings, when our space is threatened, we respond or we react. And I want to propose that interreligious dialogue is a response, not a reaction. If it is a reaction, then we are creating more conflict. Sometimes interreligious dialogue comes about when we have been instigated by others. They could be leaders for their own reasons, or sometimes it could be indicated that it is for our own good. We also have ideological differences, which can lead to conflict or lack of understanding. And so interreligious dialogue gives us an opportunity to interrogate these ideological differences. Religious convictions are rather emotive, more so because they are innermost. In the subject phenomenology of religion, or even in psychology of religion, we look at different dimensions of religion, and one of the key dimensions is the experiential dimension, from experience. You know, I could be convinced. I asked my students, and I see several sisters, nuns in this gathering. I asked them, why did you make the choice to become a sister? And the explanation may not make a lot of meaning to me who's listening to it. But for the person who is convinced about it, it is so deep and it's so personal, it gives a sense of security. So when these convictions are threatened, then we are likely to try and be defensive. And more important, these convictions are owed or are attributed to a divine being. Whether it is Islam, African traditional religion, Christianity, the place of the supreme being is very paramount, and we would want to defend this supreme being. Now, we need to agree that there's a lot of conflict in our midst. It could be political, it could be economic. Studies have indicated that conflicts are more often than not spearheaded by men, but the impact is felt more by women and children. It is important, therefore, that women are aware, that women engage and are involved in interreligious dialogue. Who is woman? Which woman are we talking about? Statistics indicate that she's the majority. I don't know whether this has changed, but it's given that there's 52% of women and 48% of men. Sometimes it fluctuates, but let's use that as a working figure. The point we want to stress here is that she's the majority. In the Christian circles, they are the majority in the pews. African culture does not allow us to count people, but if you look in this room, we think there are more women than men. The women occupy key positions which may not necessarily be so recognized. They are the mothers, they are the teachers, they are the nurses. Just this week, there was something circulating on social media that in a family in India, the father implied that the mother does not work. And the son decided to draw a picture of the mother's commitments and work. If you look at that mosaic, we can use that. There is so much that women do. Again, studies have indicated that for the average rural African woman, they put about 18 hours into various activities. Again, with the woman, calling her that one who is mobile. She's the daughter of so and so. In a little while, for those who choose marriage, she's the wife of so and so. And for us in East Africa, she moves from her home to another home. And then for people like me who also have a hand or a leg in the urban center, she also has another home, almost 3 spaces. She's a daughter-in-law, maybe to make our moments light. I'm a grandmother, and this week, my 5-year-old granddaughter asked her mother whether I am the auntie of the mother. And the mother told her, no, she's my mother-in-law. I think the child didn't get it very well. She has been saying that she calls me Nana, that Nana is my mother's mother-in-law. And I think it's very good. I think I like it very much. Now, women, whether they are Muslim or they are Christian, have got common needs. They have human needs. The need for water, the need for shelter, those basic needs. They do not have religious ties. In various Christian denominations, because that's where our focus is, there are strong women wings, Catholic Women Association, Women's Guild for the Presbyterians, Mothers Union for the Anglicans, Seventh-day Adventists, we have women ministry. And we could go on and we could go on. So this woman we are talking about is a reality, is a force or should be a force to reckon with. But unfortunately, when we want to look at the space, we find that this space for the woman is sometimes constrained or is sometimes not appreciated. It's not given prominence. So let's move on and ask ourselves, what is space? I found it difficult to come up with like a line or two, but I just want to say that there are two spaces. There's the public space, and then there's the private space. If we look at the Christian circles, then we can say that the organizations and associations of women that I've mentioned, we could say this is a recognition or this is public space for the women. Apart from those organizations, several Christian denominations also have specific positions reserved for women in the various church structures. And then sometimes you'd find if there is, for example, there is need for interreligious dialogue, then some women may be elected or may be nominated or may be chosen, and I want to call this public and special space, which may come or which may not be forthcoming. And then we also want to talk about the space of women in the marketplace, where the women are in the public eye, in the matatu, in the market, anywhere. And we are aware that there's a lot of scrutiny on the space of the public space of women or women who are in the public limelight. I believe these are some of the discussions that we have during question and answer. Then I want to talk about the private space. This is the personal life. And remember, we have said earlier that when we are talking about interreligious dialogue, we also need to be very much aware about the dialogue with myself. So my space, my personal life. Then we have the domestic space, which we have already referred to: mother, wife, sibling, in-law, etc. And here, I think for those who are in religious life, we know that the community is your domestic space. Another private space I want to look at is the school or the workplace. You are not there because of your religious convictions. Sometimes we make choices for where to be in school, and you could apply to work in a certain space or in a certain place. Then I also bring in that women have opportunity to choose some spaces that are faith related or religion related. The Bible Study Fellowship, it's a very strong, I don't know, let's call it association, not only here in Kenya, but it's international. It brings together women from different denominations. But I also want to bring in the women groups. One writer has said that this is one space that is very, very special for many women. It motivates them. It enhances their economic aspiration. It enhances leadership, etc. I want to pull in the element of representation here and say that the representation of women in the public space may be low, but in the private space, one can be their own representative. And if you are a woman of faith, you are a Christian, and they believe for Muslim, you are a representative of God. And I want to underline here that there is enormous space or enormous opportunity for women in the private space. I want to bring this much, much closer home and ask, we are talking about Christian tradition. An African Christian woman cannot escape or cannot ignore the place of her culture. And I would like to, it's a paper I did several years ago, a book which is edited by Fred Muvumbi. Some of you would remember him. It's now 2 years since he died. The title of that book is Interfaith Dialogue Towards a Culture Working Together. I did a paper on the place of women, and I'm going to borrow a few ideas from there, but I'm phrasing it differently now. I'm asking, what can we learn from the African indigenous setting with regard to interreligious dialogue, and especially as it applies to women? In the indigenous African societies, people formed groups that helped the individual to participate in their own growth and in the development and well-being of the community. This participation involved decision-making and enforcement of those decisions for the common good. And Father Dren was speaking. One of the ideas that came out very well is that we need action. It is not just theory, it's not just coming to the conference, but action. So decision-making, enforcement of those decisions for the common good. I think this underlines very well the aspect of action. In that paper that I have referred to, I quoted from a book, our Religious Heritage by Judith Bahemuka. She has talked about various groups, but I want to pick two from the Akamba Society. The first one is Milaso, where young girls came together and worked together. An individual would identify a task which they are not able to carry out by themselves, or even if they are, they believe that there is strength in group. So an individual identifies a task, calls friends and relatives of about the same age, explains what the task is all about, Then together, the group sets a date when they'll come together to perform the task. Milaso was guided by the principle of reciprocity, again, common good. The group was small and close, and friendship would develop. No secrets from each other, but this group was also an agent of socialization, an agent of education. You say they are young girls, this is where they learn a few things about their development, physical development as young girls, their expected roles as women and family people, and simply as useful members of the community. Now, they discuss their issues in confidence and freely. Remember, we have asked ourselves what should prevail when it comes to interreligious dialogue. The second group among the Akamba was that of Media. This was for older people, men and women, including young people that came together to perform again an identified task. Now, it is through Media that people's qualities or an individual's qualities were highlighted and excellence was promoted. And if the task that the people were performing was, for example, building a house, it was not the skill of the builder that came out or that was appreciated, but even that one of the singer, because work went with singing. Through song and dance, work was made enjoyable and fulfilling. Let me tie this together of Milasio and Media, that what is it that African Christian women can learn from these cultural efforts? Number one is collective effort and pulling together. Number two is using the materials that are available. We are reminded in the Bible that God asked Moses, what is it that you have in your hand? Use that which is available. This is to achieve own aspirations as well as those of the community. It calls for participation of all, of one and all. The projects that are identified are not mega, but those projects that people identify with and those projects that are important for them in their day-to-day life. The guiding principles also include collective good, not just individual gain, mutual social responsibility, and responsibility to each other. With the belief that if the society prospers, then all the members will share in the prosperity. Jomo Kenyatta has said that it's good to be together, but together for a purpose is even better. Women, interreligious dialogue, it's good to be together, but to be together for a purpose is even better. But I also want to say that much as we are appreciating the role of culture, we also know that there can be cultural baggage, which brings about exclusivity where probably we do not want to work with the others because of our cultural differences. I'd like to, I'm not a biblical scholar, but I'd like to borrow from the second book of Kings, chapter 5, which I see as something that as African Christian women, it could be useful. This chapter of the Bible is a focus on Naaman. Naaman, the title of the chapter, depending on the version you have used, is Naaman healed of leprosy. Naaman was a gallant soldier, but he had been struck by leprosy. At the time, or in the context of this passage, there was conflict between Israel and the neighboring groups, Aram, where Naaman was serving. So a young girl had been taken captive from Israel, and she served in the palace or in the home of Naaman. Naaman had leprosy. This little girl said to her mistress, "If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure of his leprosy." I like to use this when we're talking about representation, we are talking about space, we are talking about collaboration. This is a little girl who is a captive, who is serving in a palace. But she speaks out to Naaman's wife. Both of these women, their names are not given. She's called the little girl or the little slave girl, and then Naaman's wife. I'm sure she had her own name. But the conversation between these two is that this little girl spoke and Naaman's wife listened. We can see a ripple effect in that Naaman's wife mentioned to him, and he also listened, and he took action a little bit reluctantly, but he was cured of his leprosy. What can we gather from this incident? No matter how small or humble the position, look at this little slave captive girl. There's no telling how far one's message can go. What I'm emphasizing here is the point of speaking and also the point of listening. And I also want to emphasize here that when we talk about women, age should not hinder our contribution. In this country, there is a lot of emphasis on the place of the young people. They may not be very happy that enough has been done, but the place and the position of the youth. Another lesson we could get from here is that we can cross cultural and social class. Dialogue. We can cross class and the social spaces or dynamics. What we also see here is we can also cross the outsider and the dynamic barriers. This little girl was an outsider, but we can see that the dynamics between themselves really have no outsider and they don't have insider. They are working together. If we were to read that story and what Naaman did after getting this message, then we can also see that dialogue can lead to crossing of political barriers. And the important thing is that there is common good and Naaman is healed. I've used these two examples to say if we are talking about Christian traditions, then we cannot ignore the fact that we are in the African context and there are lessons that we can learn from the Bible. We can expand on this, but I believe that for now, this is useful. As I come to the close, I have the last question, whether there is a difference between interfaith and interreligious dialogue. And I note here that faith is a belief, a deep, strong, and unshakable conviction about something. Perhaps we need to deepen our personal faith as women, as people of God, as this will help us to engage in interreligious dialogue. It will also help us to appreciate the other's faith convictions. This calls for intra-dialogue. Intra-dialogue is that speaking to myself. One of our teachers used to ask us whether we quarrel ourselves. Do you ever quarrel yourself? It's quite deep, it's quite philosophical, but I think it's very important. Intra-dialogue, speaking to yourself about your own convictions. This will guide towards intra-faith dialogue. So I bring here the element that we need to appreciate that private space, which gives us an opportunity for intra-dialogue. And then this can help us in the public space, where we can also have interreligious dialogue. Remember the way I tried to distinguish between this public and private space. I hope it's coming out clear that there is private space of myself, but then there is also private space in the public, and then there is public space. And I'm saying that this does not just apply to the Christian woman, but to the people of God. All those that are concerned about and are committed to the common good. I'm happy that there is something here in one of the pillars here. I hadn't seen it before I came here, but I think I want to refer to it. It says faith leads a believer to see in the other a brother or sister to be supported and to be loved. Through faith in God, who has created the universe, creatures and all human beings, equal on account of his mercy, believers are called to express this human fraternity by safeguarding creation and the entire universe and supporting all persons, especially the poorest and those most in need. I think Father Adrian referred to that, and I also want to emphasize that interreligious dialogue as a space for women's representation and collaboration in Christian tradition will borrow a lot and will benefit a lot from intra-faith. Our faith will help us to have interreligious dialogue. Thank you so much for listening to me. I stay here?
Hello. My name is Susanna here, so I'm also working for the IRIS team as a junior advisor, like Matthias. I was seconded by a German aid agency, which is called Agiamono, and I would like now to just give you some space to ask some questions, and therefore I would like to ask you to come to the front and just ask them if you have any questions. So feel free.
Thank you, Professor, for your good presentation. From your presentation, I've learned that interreligious dialogue is possible if each member of the society participates in the process of dialogue. I've also learned that at the grassroots, there is good space for women. Women are participating, also at the middle level. But I've seen a gap at the top level because most of the leaders are men in the religious institution. And when there is interreligious dialogue at the top level, you see women are not, there's limited space for women. And I wonder whether there are any practical steps you can recommend to these institutes or any other institute working for this so that women can have that space to contribute their ideas at that particular level, which can make the society a better space for each one of us. Thank you.
And you can also answer it one by one.
Okay.
How you would like to answer.
Then we have Sibyl.
Yeah. Yes. So are there any questions left? No? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor, for this great presentation. My name is Steven, I'm from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And it's a concern that I have, it is important to have this interreligious dialogue. There is a long way to go. We have much to do to make it real in our society. As we discuss as people of faith, from different faiths, from Fraternity, from Laudato Si, as it was written by Pope Francis, the dialogue we need to do is a dialogue also to solve issues of our time. And carrying down to grassroots, to our families, what we are trying to mean as dialogue. I think that is where we can really find trends and the meaning of the dialogue we want to have. Going straight to the point is that, first of all, in our churches, in a mosque, the way we interpret scriptures in the Bible, in the Quran, the traditions we have in our places of worship, what is that space and that role we are giving to women? Because we acknowledge really that they are strong and they are powerful and they are really like a good creation that we have. They are everything. Without women, I know what you mentioned in economy, that life, like humanity, women are key. So now, some people will be just discussing with the groups, like people are just saying like in the Bible, the way even it was written, like if you consider like one part, they will say that Jesus fed 5,000 men without mentioning women. So there are some discriminative scripture somewhere you will find in the Bible where you find it has been there long time ago. It was mentioned in the scripture like women have never been given that respect or that space. So there is a need of going back to our scriptures and see how not to correct, maybe also to find a right interpretation so that really nobody can challenge that and the women are given a space in our scripture that we have. The same in the traditions that we have, why we don't have also space, we don't give space to women when it comes to structures and decision making. I think to meet the previous question also, women to meet this, to have that space to take decisions so that the structures are giving space to women. There are issues of our time, like for example, ladies in the poor areas where you find like many girls got pregnant amidst COVID-19. There was issues of poverty. They were looking for something to really to eat, and the women are the ones feeling that poverty, struggling to get something to feed children. You see those issues going to women. The men are not like much concerned. Why, when a girl in school is kicked out of school because she got pregnant, but the boy is still okay, following studies and all that. So all those issues over time, how Professor maybe help us also to understand more, to go deep in the issues of our time so that we really understand how to go about it. It's really important for us to go into that so that the dialogue we are doing, it's a really dialogue, not for us who are here, but for the society. Then everybody will be able to take it from here. Thank you.
So, thank you for this remark. Do you want to have another question or do you just want to read now? Yeah. So is there another question you would like to ask Professor Ritchie? No, so maybe we can just answer these two questions.
Yes, thank you very much for the contributions. Actually, they are in line with what I was saying. Yes, definitely there is a gap at the top space. And if you look at many of the mainline Christian churches, that is the picture. Now, I think we look at the ministries. There is a lot of debate about the ministries, the new religious groups. Women are beginning to have their space in those new emerging groups. But what I want to say is that a lot of times, let's say there's a big issue and it needs to be discussed, and it's discussed at that very high level, there's little that comes down to the common person. And maybe I do not have answers, but maybe one way is to encourage a top-down approach. And this touches on the second comment, that the issues are with us, the issues are right here. In my presentation, I mentioned that people will work and people will make a commitment to that issue which they can identify with. a few years ago, there was an article where this women group, which was doing extremely well, it wasn't because they were Muslim, it wasn't because they were Christian, but because they had a common purpose, and that was the need for water. And so they came together, used the principles of dialogue, and in a very short time, each one of them had a water tank, and this was a great improvement to their lives. Yes, the Bible interpretation is open. It can be liberating, or it can also be enslaving. The small Christian communities in the Catholic Church, in the Bible study groups that I've already mentioned, the Bible Study Fellowship, that one is structured, it's international, but that may not be even in the reach of the village people, but they have their own small Bible study groups. Joe Healy has done a study on the contribution of the small Christian communities in the lives of the grassroots people in Africa. And what comes out is that this is where leadership is nurtured. This is where the people's needs are appreciated. This is where community comes together. As I said, I'm not Catholic. I'm born in a Seventh-day Adventist family. But in my mother's last days, the people who ministered best to her were the village to here, the small Christian community in my village. They do not have barriers to denomination. If my mother was lonely, for example, she would believe in me, but I'm here like I am here today. And this is the group which met the social gap. This is the group which met some of her physical needs. These are the people she was calling her children. I think that helps us to appreciate that the issues are right here with us, and they could be as per the context. Talk about the need for water, we talk about I'm using my mother as the need of the elderly in our communities whose children are far away from home. We could be talking about issues of bereavement. We could go back to the examples I've given from the indigenous Akamba community, where somebody needs to till, and they consider that it's better for them to do it as a group. I think the chamas and the welfare, the merry-go-round groups that we have, they are more with the women than with the men, are definitely meeting some of the needs in our communities or in our contexts. I hope that way I have made a comment that meets the two comments that you are raised.
Thank you very much for answering the question. So I would like to give the word to you again. So if you just have another question, just raise your hand or come in front. So I think otherwise there would be also some opportunity to just ask them during the day. So and oh yes, you would like to ask. Yeah, because I think otherwise we are ready for the tea break, right? So the tea will be served there. So we have a 30 minutes break, right? And afterwards we will just hear an input on interreligious dialogue as a space for collaboration and representation. And now from the Muslim perspective by Professor Hudan. So I really would like to thank Professor Guitry for this really interesting input today. And yeah, I would like to say thank you and just enjoy your tea break.
Mm-hmm.